Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, world. This is Doug Bruhnke, CEO of Global Chamber. I'm really honored and pleased to be here today with Fred Weling, who's the Managing Director of Actios. He can be found at fweling with one L at actios.biz. I'll be able to give you some more information later on. He's really a unique character, and here's why. There's several things in his background involved with business in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in the Americas. Of large but mainly SMEs and mid-sized companies, and so his broad breadth and his deep knowledge in all of these business areas we thought would be a really great topic to cover today. And that topic is how to harvest growth and efficiency ideas from your global team. So as you're growing internationally, yes, you're an executive who goes out there and finds all sorts of unique ways to grow and to become more efficient, but you know at the end of the day you've got to engage your team, and so Fred is an expert in that area. And so Fred, very much pleased to have you join us today. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. I'm very pleased to be here, and thanks for the invite. I think the success of the chamber is really a testimony to the fact that people are interested in growth and they're reaching out to other communities within the network. And I think this is a very good framework for the things that I would like to talk about.
Fantastic. So the good news is, you know, for those of you out there who are growing an international business, or growing a business, period, by the way, and looking for ways to improve it, improve the bottom line, improve efficiency and productivity, you're not alone. We're all of us are in that same boat, and so we'll be talking about that in depth today. So, you know, one thing that's uniform in the 20,000 or so companies that we interact with on a near daily basis here at the Chamber so far is these issues, growth and how do I become more successful. And so, Fred, could you start us off by maybe identifying some key issues that you've identified, you know, over the years and currently that are really key things that are either helping or hurting companies to reach their success?
Yeah, I would say there are a number of trends that, I mean, the world is changing, and the world is really changing very fast. If you look at the trends, from geopolitical trends, as I don't have to talk about the Brexit and its consequences on Europe and the Euro and on Scotland and Ireland, the wars and the migration of people. I mean, all those things are well known. But if you look more closely at business trends, you see that there are a lot of huge transformations. For example, in the retail industry, where the retailers more and more disappear, and we see this on a monthly basis, you know, almost here in the U.S. And then you have a lot of new entrants like Uber, Airbnb. You have Tesla is competing in the automotive market, and also fintech, which is which provides the technology to do banking operations in a very different way than before. So those are all trends that somehow have to be taken into account. And then certainly the CEO, when you look at the trends in mobile with apps and GPS and ways to interact with the customer, is something that the company has to take a position in. And there are more scary things like cybercrime, cybersecurity, and cloud computing, encryption, and so on. So those are all trends. And the last thing I would like to mention is certainly the instability of our global markets, financial markets with negative interest rates. So that is the backdrop for the CEO to navigate his company. And on the other hand, he has to make sure that his shareholders get a decent return, that the company grows, and that the company is profitable. And so the question is really, the broad question is, how can a CEO run a company in this very complex environment? And how can he develop a solid action plan going forward? irrespective of whether this is an action plan to pursue growth or to become globally more efficient. So my take on this is really that it is impossible for any CEO to understand all the trends, to know how to capitalize on those trends, and to single-handedly navigate the company through those very treacherous waters. And so my recommendation, the best solution that I can see and that we can discuss during this broadcast, is to push out some of the problems to your global team, to ask them for ideas and let them come back, debate this, and then come up with the best plan for the company, and then you have an action plan that is based on consensus. There's only one last comment that I would like to make here, is that the idea of asking people for ideas is very old. So there's nothing new, and that is not the emphasis of what I would like to talk about. My point is more that there are efficient ways of doing it and less efficient ways, and that is the topic of some of the hints and the tips that I will give you in the course of this presentation.
Okay, well, very good. So how, we know that's important. We've all reached out and been unsatisfied with that kind of feedback, as you kind of allude to there. So how does a top executive or any executive get that kind of feedback and create an action plan that really works?
Yeah, let me put this into somewhat of my historical experience with the topic. So I've done what I would call collaborative performance improvement projects for the last 15 years, and they were done in mostly in the U.S. But also in Europe. And the goal there was to either increase profits in terms of revenue growth or efficiency improvement. And when I use the word collaborative, what collaborative means for me is number one, a very close interaction and working relationship with the executives and also with the middle management, the managers. But the second thing is to make sure that the company owns the solution. For me, that is paramount, because any change has to come from within, and that is the goal of this collaborative approach. So the first thing is certainly that during this time, there were two lessons that I learned. The first one is really that the employees are a gold mine of ideas. And when you as a consultant, you run a project that is predicated based on the ideas of employees, you're always worried about whether the gold mine could be empty at one point. But that is not the case. This is a very rich gold mine. But that is something that most companies do, so there's nothing new about that. But my point is that you need to have the right approach to mine those ideas if you want to have a concrete blueprint for the future and also a large financial impact. And that is usually average.
So that makes sense. So how practically does that work? You're an executive at a company, and so do you do surveys? Do you do it one-on-one? Do you do it in group meetings? Kind of how does it look? And maybe if you could cite a couple of examples, or at least one example of somebody who had this task, or maybe something that you've been involved with that took the process from near zero to being very effective.
Yeah. So there are a couple of ways of setting this up. But the most effective one is if the whole company or a team is formed that addresses that is suitable for the questions that the CEO has, and then you have a rigorous process in which the team works with the executives and with the consultant to come up with ideas, and they submit those ideas on a very regular basis. Then they are reviewed, and then there is the first presentation to the executives, which you can call a steering committee review, and they debate the ideas with the individual group, and then you work out the details of the idea. You look at the valuations and the financial impact, and also at the risk, and then there's a second meeting, and in the third meeting, then the executives decide what to do and what not to do. So that is the overall framework, and it is agreed, and the risk assessments have been made. So that is what a project would typically look like.
Okay. Are there some examples that stick out in your mind of how that came together?
The process is the same for all companies, but but let's say what you do, depending on whether you want to grow or not to grow, that is the difference. And so if you look at what companies have done in the past, when they launch an initiative to reach out to employees for ideas, is to simply say, okay, we're launching an initiative, and we collect the ideas from the employees and have some committee examine them, and then we make a decision. When you do that, the harvest of the ideas and the financial benefit are typically very small. And the reason for that is when you send out people, they will not address very complicated issues. Typically, they will not do anything that seems risky to them. And so there are examples given in the literature where people have obtained, where a large company has only had a few $100,000 in impact. But I would say that the numbers can be significantly higher. And in some of the projects that I've done, I can give you a range of the savings that were obtained, and they range from 8% to all the way to 25%. So if you do it in the way that I just described, with this discipline, the financial impact can be significantly larger, and it will move the needle and will improve the overall financial performance of the company.
I see. Does the process change depending on whether you're going after growth versus efficiency, or if it's a big company versus a small, or if you're in Asia versus Africa versus Americas? I mean, what are some of the regional differences, the industry differences, the focus differences, where you're going after growth in one case where you might be wanting to inspire a certain type of activity, or if you're going after efficiency where you're maybe going after another? What are some of the nuanced differences between those different circumstances?
Yeah, let's say the process, since it is based on the ideas of the employees, is independent of the industry. So the opportunities are different, vary by industry, of course, but the approach is industry independent. The people in different countries react very positive to this because it is very consensus-based, and should certainly work very well in Asia because it's a consensus-driven culture. But the idea is that just take one a simple idea that someone comes up with. There are some ideas which are very obvious and do not provide much controversy, but other things are most ideas in business are two people who argue with each other for good reasons because that's their belief. And but then the question is, how do you bring about consensus? And so, for example, it is very possible that you send out a person at night to watch a call center perform and see whether it needs to be open or not. So those are things that you can look at. But you say, well, there's some things that are the same when you do revenue or when you do cost reduction or efficiency improvement. And let me just give them. In both cases, when you have the problem that you have when you have lots of people submitting ideas, at the end you have a sorting problem and a ranking problem. So you have, let's say, 1,000 ideas or several thousand ideas. How are you going to sort them? How do you decide what you as a CEO are going to do? And so the best way to do this is to provide a framework, a format for the ideas to be analyzed. So you standardize the way in which the reporting, for example, on a growth idea will take place, and as such, you can compare the different possibilities with among each other. The other thing that that is the same is that you have to have a rigorous process that people sign up to, and they have deliverables, they have deadlines. There's a structure, a time structure. Everything is time bound, so that people have to deliver within a certain amount of time. That is the same for both. But in terms of the overall approach, there are differences between revenue and efficiency.
Okay. How do you know you've got the right people on the team, and maybe conversely, how do you build a team to make sure that this process actually happens versus maybe be more dysfunctional?
Yeah. Let's say when you select the team, this is crucial because they have to drive the ideas forward. So you want to make sure that you make the right choices. Especially for an international project, you need to find people. You need diversity. So you certainly need regional or geographic diversity. Obviously, because people's behaviors, lifestyles, tastes vary by region, and so you have to have an input of the regional preferences. The second thing is you also need people who have different behaviors. So you need behavioral diversity. You cannot only have risk takers and base jumpers and parachutists. You also have to have a mixture of people who have a word of caution. And the last thing that you need is functional diversity, because if when you talk about the offering to a customer about what people call a value proposition, you have technical aspects where you have to have the best thinking of the engineers, but also you have to have the marketing and sales in the room so that they know so that they can tell you what you can sell and what you cannot sell. And forging this consensus about what is possible in an idea is something that should be done in your team.
I see. Does the team need certain roles and responsibilities? Is this something that's like predictable, like there needs to be a leader and then the various people are kind of split up, and then how does that relate to their organizational roles? How do you work that?
Yeah. Typically you have groups that address a certain function, and the leader of this group is typically the natural leader of the activity, except maybe in some situations where for some reason the company prefers to choose someone else. And even within a team, the idea is to delegate. So if you have an idea that you want to discuss or to develop, you can the group leader can delegate this to other people on his team so that they can get involved and do some of the legwork that otherwise he would have to do. And so the roles and responsibilities are very clear. The steering committee or the executive team makes all the decisions. So they are in charge at all times. Nothing will happen in the company without them giving their agreement. But at the same time, the group leaders and their team have to come up with an action plan. So it's not an action plan which means let's investigate or let's study or anything like this, but they say, okay, I'm going to propose to outsource this activity, or alternatively, let's insource the activity. And so you allow cognitive dissonance, so to speak. You allow two different ideas to be debated at the same time, and then in the end, the best ones win, and the team makes a decision. And so their responsibility is to the steering committee to develop the ideas, to find the financial impact, to assess the risk, which is very important, and then debate and build consensus by trying to mitigate the risk and find ways to reduce the risk. So that is their responsibility.
Okay. How in an organization do you manage the issue of people taking ownership or of a particular idea or initiative because they're involved with it? So the example of where you might have, let's say, 15, 20 different initiatives, and you've got different people in different initiatives, and so the people in initiative number 3 and 4 happen to be a little bit stronger, so they tend to be more forceful in how they present their own position, and they might not care about number 17, 18, 19. So how does the executive kind of maneuver this portfolio, if you will, of initiatives to make sure that at the end of the day there's a balanced decision and not being driven by like specific individuals within 1, 2, or more initiatives?
Yeah. So it is it's clear that people who have a strong personality and would push their views on other people could drive the decision about an idea in one direction as opposed to another. The way that but the idea is here to find consensus. And so if a strong leader says something and someone else says, no, I think this is the wrong thing to do, he can either input a new idea and say, well, instead of doing this, there's an alternative solution that I propose, and any idea has to be accepted. And ideas are also not owned by someone. So if you propose an idea, it will not be your idea, but it will simply be the team's idea. That is what counts, and nobody keeps track for a premium or anything like this, that whether Joe proposed this or Mary. So that is all for the best of the company. And then when there is disagreement, then you just work out the concerns, and you work out the concerns unless either there's consensus or that you modify the idea in such a way that that people can live with the results, and they say, well, okay, that is something I think is with an acceptable risk.
Okay. Does that analysis and consensus, is that a team effort? And how does the leader, in this case, let's say in your experience, make sure that there is that sensibility around coming to collaboration, even across cultures, right? Because you've spent a lot of time in Germany, and you get a German and another. I won't pick any particular nationality, but if and being somewhat German myself, we tend to be a little bit stronger in personality, and so when you've got maybe some folks that might be from a culture that is not necessarily rewarding of such a strong personality, how do you as a leader make sure that input's coming through loud and clear, and that that the right things are being talked about even across cultures?
Yeah. So here, this is where, let's say, the independent third party comes in. The independent third party can obviously see that one person is driving, either has an agenda and is driving the project in one direction, and other people are reluctant to do that. So when you sit down with a group here and say, listen, we have a problem, and we have to find consensus, and the way it is being done right now is not the way to build consensus. So you would counsel him, and I would say there are a lot of, probably there is maybe 40% analytics work in this type of activity, but 60% is really psychology. It's handling people, handling their expectations, brokering deals, make sure that everybody can give their best in the situation, and that nobody is steamrolled by someone who is maybe domineering. Okay.
I presume then over the decades you've never had to like break up a fist fight or anything. You've never seen anything.
No, that is true. But I must say there have been situations where the behavior of people was so egregious that the executives decided to remove the person from the project.
Wow.
That has happened actually several times.
They weren't German, were they?
No, they were no Germans. They were all Americans.
Very good. So so I think you mentioned this, but so your experience is that if you're looking at growth or whether you're looking at efficiency, either one, they're largely the same process. That's kind of what I'm hearing from you in terms of
the framework. In the framework. However, I would say in the tasks, the two have two different flavors. So if you talk about growth ideas, everybody is very excited. This is fun. You imagine the future. What could we do? And people get very energized by that. If on the other hand you say, well, I have a subsidiary, maybe an international subsidiary, which is not doing well, then people have to look into the mirror. There are conflicts, and that is less fun, if you want. On the flip side of this, if you look at revenue, it takes time to build up the financial impact of a revenue idea. Well, if you fix a company that is not doing well, the impact will be extremely fast, and so the financial reward is much faster. So that is one aspect of the two. But at the same time, also if you look, and I know we are advancing here in time, but if you look at revenue ideas, I can give you an example of a company that I saw that was a telecommunications equipment company, and they did the right thing. They had their team had a multinational team. They had a multinational presence. They wanted to grow and be very innovative. But what the executive said when he wanted to drive the project was said, well, I do not want to constrain any ideas. So any idea is fine, and so I want to have unfettered generation of ideas. So as a result, there was no market limitation, there was no technology limitation, there was no financial limitation, and then people go all over the map. That is not something that you want. Especially for something that is as blue sky as revenue. You don't want to have that. Instead, you want to delineate the space where people can look for opportunities. If you look at the efficiency side, well, you have all the blocks in your possession. This is what your operations look like, and so you have to analyze very systematically where the bottlenecks are, where the blockages are, and so that is more an introspection, while the other one is more, I don't know if the word exists, outrospection, extrospection. So that's the difference, and so the guide is what you want to do. You want to guide you want to guide people forward in both cases. If you have a revenue project, what is the space in which we play? What technologies can we do, or do we want to do? What is the vision? The vision. Do we want to be a provider of security systems for houses? Is this our vision? And then people, once you have the frame, then you can ask people, and you push out the feeling of your strategy to the team and say, well, what kind of ideas do you have? And then they can fill this frame that you have set with ideas. But then internally, they have to compete for the limited resources that the company has. And the company can then choose the very best ideas that are being put forward that fit the strategic frame of the company.
I see. When you get involved in a project these days, how do you step in? What are the first things that you do? How long does it take? Kind of walk us through kind of what that looks like.
Well, the first thing is to talk with executives and to understand where their needs are and what they would like to achieve. And so let's take for the sake of the discussion, efficiency project. If the company, for example, has grown through acquisitions and has a lot of cleanup to do, then that would be one motivation. Another one could be that all of a sudden there is a reduction of the market in which the company is operating, and that all of a sudden prices go down massively, that there's intense competition, and so you have to address the needs and then tailor the project accordingly. But usually it takes maybe 2 months or so to get set up and to have the people. You have to name the people to the project. You have to have a financial analysis, a baseline where people can do costing in a way they understand their costs, and then after that you have let's say 100 days or so, give or take, depending on the company, where you work with the people, and then this is the time from the beginning until you have an action plan that is blessed by the executives, and where then you can immediately say, okay, execute. So the typical problem that you have in consulting, where someone writes a report and says, well, here he is, and that the path between this report and a concrete action plan that can be put into practice is long. Here, in this case, the actions are the are the deliverables of the project.
How, in the end, do you make sure that this becomes more than just a one-time thing, that it institutionalizes perhaps some of the processes that you've talked about? Is that part of your thinking as well?
That is a very good question. Let's say the best picture that I could really paint for a project like that is that it is you clear the rocks and the trees from the space that you want to build a garden in. So you move the big boulders, you solve the big problems that exist in the company, and then once that is done, then there can be a continuous improvement project that the company can manage and do subsequent to the project, where they can say, well, actually we can refine, and we cut the blocks relatively coarsely, but now we can refine this and improve the company even further. So there is additional mileage, and they can use the same approaches, and some companies have done that to continue the work that was started.
Okay, very good. Is there anything that we've left out before we terminate our conversation today? Is there anything that we've left out that we should cover?
No, nothing. I mean, this is the overall picture of the type of work I do, and so I'm happy to discuss with people or exchange emails if they feel like discussing their own problems or questions.
Fantastic. You're a part of the global tribe. You work around the world. Could you tell people your contact information, at least your email address, and how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah. So that's F like Foxtrot, W like whiskey, E like echo, L like Lima, I like India, N like November, G like golf, at Actios, A like Alpha, C like Charlie, T like Tango, I like India, O like Oscar, S like Sierra.com.
Okay, very good. Are you a pilot as well?
Yeah. But I've spelled for many countries, and so that was the best way for me to get the spelling right.
How many countries over the years do you think you've visited?
I certainly lived in about 8 or so, and visited probably 15 or more.
Okay, very good. What are some of your favorite places?
Favorite places probably for me is Hawaii.
Hawaii. Okay.
So a project in Hawaii is my dream, but I think this will remain a dream.
Okay. Well, I have good news for you, because we're coming up. Global Chamber Honolulu is ramping up right now.
So if you need someone to go out there, I'm happy to volunteer.
We'll make sure that happens very soon. Fred Weling, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate your expertise, your knowledge, and thank you for giving your time today to a very important topic. This is one that any executive has wrestled with, still wrestles with, even when we fully understand it. So really appreciate your ideas and thoughts, and I encourage everybody in the audience, to contact Fred. Let us know either at info@globalchamber.org or doug@globalchamber.org, which is my contact information. If you have any questions, need some follow-up, have some ideas, would like to go to Honolulu with Fred and his next trip there, or whatever's of interest to you. And so thank you, Fred, very much.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And thank you, everybody else. We'll see you next time. Our next meeting is the 4th Tuesday of July. We probably might have one or two in between then, so watch your event calendar at globalchamber.org. Events are happening all the time. I will say that, for instance, as an example of that, we were here in the office today, and lo and behold, a group from Latin America is coming into the Global Chamber headquarters office on Thursday. So today is Tuesday, and a group of 12, including some State Department, U.S. State Department visitors, are coming into the Global Chamber in just 2 days. And so if you're interested in doing business in Latin America, let me know and be happy to involve you with that. We have chapters on every continent of the world, 65 around the world today, setting up in 86 and 110 by the end of the year, and then of course 525 over the next several years. And so we are helping companies grow from anywhere to everywhere. If you want to grow somewhere, we can help, undoubtedly. So give us a call. Thank you very much for listening.